Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I am Daita Sergi, Education Programs Manager with AASHE, and I will be the moderator of today's webinar. It is my pleasure to welcome you all. As many of you know, AASHE's mission is to inspire and catalyze higher education to lead the global sustainability transformation. We are an international association with about 1,000 members spread across more than 20 countries, including Canada and South Africa. We serve as the professional home for campus sustainability staff, but we offer resources for everyone in higher education. We provide an expansive collection of online resources, networking tools, and educational events, such as today's webinar and an annual conference and expo, which will be held in just a month in San Antonio, Texas, October 15 to 18. Online registration will close in 2 days this Friday, so please visit conference.aashe.org for more information, and we hope to see you there. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Everyone in the audience is on mute, but please feel free to ask questions or provide comments at any point during the presentation. You can do that by typing your questions or comments in the questions pane in the control panel on your screen. If you have additional questions, please email them to education@aashe.org, and we will get back to you. At the end of the webinar, you'll have the opportunity to provide feedback regarding today's presentation. We take your suggestions into account when planning for future webinars, so please do provide this feedback. Please note this webinar is being recorded. If you experience technical difficulties or have to leave early, you and others can view the recording later. The recording, presentation materials will all be available in the Campus Sustainability Hub after the live broadcast. I'd like to introduce today's presenters. Brianna Nils, Sustainability and Communication Coordinator in the Division of University Housing at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Tyler Plante, Coordinator of Outreach and Programs in the Sustainability Office at Wilfrid Laurier University. Brianna works to streamline sustainable operations and programs across campus, playing an active role in providing students and staff tools and expertise to become sustainability leaders. Tyler is responsible for strategic communications and the development of programs to create a culture of sustainability across campus, focusing on engaging students and preparing them to be tomorrow's leaders in sustainability. You can read more about their work on the AASHE website under this webinar listing. Tyler and Brianna met at AASHE 2016 when they presented together in a combined session. Today's webinar is a result of that collaboration. So finally, it is my pleasure to welcome all attendees and thank you for joining us today. At this time, I'm going to turn to Brianna to get us started.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna, and I am the Sustainability Coordinator for the Division of University Housing at UW-Madison. And as Daita shared, Tyler and I actually were paired up at last year's AASHE to do a joint session on our move-out programs. And we decided we had a great story to share then. We figured we'd do a webinar today, and we actually teamed up with another pair of sustainability representatives from 2 other universities, and we're going to be doing a 4-person panel coming up in San Antonio. So if you're like what you hear today, we'd be happy to have you at our even larger panel in October. So to start the story for Move Out at UW-Madison, I'll kind of just take you through and orient you to the Madison area. So our campus is located in the capital city of Madison, and Madison has about 2,500 residents, and we're a fairly urban campus located to a lot of lakes, so that's really great. And just a couple looking at UW, we're a larger institution. We have enrollment over 40,000, and about 30,000 of those are undergraduates, and over 900 acres, and we're a large research institution. So my role and the Move Out program that I'll be sharing today is focused on our housing move-out period. We have 2 move-out periods on campus, but the program that you'll be hearing about today is for our housing residents in May. So we're an auxiliary organization, and housing oversees 19 residence halls. And within those 19 halls, we host about 7,500 undergraduate residents. And our goal with our move-out program is when these 7,500 residents move out in May, they're able to say goodbye sustainably. So we started our move-out program in 2009, and we've been growing ever since that time, and it's really just been pretty organic in the way we've been growing. And it all started out with the desire from staff to not throw away usable things. We saw with 7,000 residents, there's a ton of stuff coming out during the move-out period, and it hurt them to see good things be thrown away. So we would just kind of piece together whatever we could to save everything. And now we've grown to a program over time that has a lot of planning involved, and it's very intentional. The partnerships that we foster and the things we donate and who we involve in our program. And it's been a really collaborative process. And we were actually given the opportunity to receive a grant to further develop our process and get a group together to do a lot of process improvements and actually create an entire resource guide that we follow while we're planning. And it serves as a great guide for campus and all of our community partners while we're putting on our move-out event. So here we are now, and we have 10 different recycling sites during our week-and-a-half move-out period, and we facilitate 2 futon and area rug donation tents, and these are available to anyone in the campus community. We have a microwave donation area, and we also have 9 desk donation areas across campus. So what do we collect at these different areas? This is an excerpt from our volunteer guide showing what items go where and the things we collect. So anything from books, clothes, shoes, we do area rugs, TVs, pillows, microwaves, and we're always looking at, first our option is how can we donate things? So connecting with St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, Goodwill, and also trying to highlight on-campus organizations of how we can connect with our on-campus food pantries or other pantries, really highlighting a student-to-student donation program. And if we're unable to donate items, we always think how we can recycle them. So always putting the landfill as the last option. So thinking first donation and thinking second, how can we recycle? And a great example of that is our futon process. So when a resident brings a futon out to one of the recycling sites, a recycling site volunteer will take a look at the futon. If it's nice, we have someone come pick it up and bring it to the futon tent that you see in the top photo. And if it's not in great condition, we have the volunteer with all the proper safety tools, of course. In the bottom photo, you see actually deconstructing that futon and taking it apart so we can divide up all of the recyclable parts. So getting out the metal, getting out the fabric, getting out the foam that we can all recycle individually. And we do that in a similar way with area rugs collected. So our on-site volunteers will take a look at the area rugs and determine if they're clean enough to be donated, and if so, we'll put them in our truck and take them to one of the donation locations. And if they're not, we put them to get recycled. So just being very mindful of that donation is not the only option. We can also recycle, so we can always keep the landfill as that last option. And we also do this with microwaves. So when microwaves are collected, we'll come around and put them in a consolidation area, and we donate these to nonprofits that connect with international students on campus. A microwave isn't exactly something you'd want to put in a suitcase, so we really try to support the students around us and promote those student-to-student donations. We actually also partner with the financial aid office and identify low-income housing residents and give them the opportunity to get a microwave from a past resident. So that's just one less thing they have to worry about when they're trying to outfit their new room. So with how much our program has grown over the years, we've had to be creative and very mindful each year of how we're going to successfully staff it so we don't have any gaps. And one way we were able to achieve this is we went to an advisory board meeting hosted by our campus Office of Sustainability, and they were able to connect us with some professors that were interested in supporting our program. So we have partnerships with 3 professors that offer extra credit for students that volunteer during our move out. So we have over 650 hours that we staff during the week-and-a-half move-out period, and 70% of those 650 total staff hours are provided for by those 3 classes that offer extra credit to their students. And we're really fortunate to have this partnership, and it's really rewarding to see the students using their safety tools to grab items out of the dumpster and save things, and it really helps them put a face to waste, and it gives them a great way to highlight our Wisconsin IDEA mission of teaching experientially and allowing the students to practice what they've learned all semester during move-outs. So that's a very important part of our program, and really at the heart of our mission is educating about waste and consumption during this move-out period. So in addition to the 70% of staffing that these students that are receiving extra credit, we also have housing staff and other campus staff and community members. And actually you'll see here a retired couple has been coming back to us for 3 years now, and they're recruiting their neighbors, and they're alumni from UW, and it's their favorite way to get back to campus. And also housing staff to deconstruct futons, so you can see the collaborative effort behind this. And with all of these different volunteers, we have to manage them some way, keep everything organized. So we use Sign Up Genius to create a site for each of our 10 different locations, and we brand these sites as a quiet site or an active site or a partner site. So our volunteers are able to select a 2-hour shift that works for their schedule and one that might be quieter so they can study for an exam coming up, or they can choose something more active because they really want to get into the action. So this is our hub for organizing all of our volunteers. And something else that's really important for managing and supporting our volunteers is our on-site support by our management staff. So in addition to the volunteers that work the 2-hour shifts and provide really the main workforce for the boots on the ground and making our move-out program successful, we have a great management team that helps support and oversee these volunteers. So that consists of myself, the main move-out coordinator, and then I have an assistant as well. And we also have 2 teams of rovers, and they're going around making rounds to the 10 different sites. So we have education rovers that focus on connecting with a volunteer to let them know what their role will be for the day and connecting what they're doing at the recycling site with their class requirements. So really making that connection from the classroom to the recycling sites during move out. And they review the volunteer guide that we have, which you see here. So in the volunteer guide, it goes step by step and helps the volunteer make decisions of where items should go. So when a resident comes up, they can use, there's also site signage that helps residents and the volunteers make decisions to get the items in the right place. And in addition to the education rovers, we have operations rovers that they're the ones going around picking up those futons, those area rugs, those microwaves to get them in the right places. So they're really the muscle of the event. And both groups of rovers go through a training period with myself, and also they are given a similar guide to the volunteers to really document and show where items are to be placed. And this is just part of our documentation that came out of the grant to really streamline and organize the process. And looking more at that grant documentation that we're fortunate to have is an entire planning manual for the entire 12-day event. And it's a planning and execution document, and I'm happy to share this with any of you, and we can touch base on that after. But it goes through every waste stream, so food, books, futons, area rugs, and also staffing guidelines and how we're able to plan all of that. And it goes through all of our partnerships and how we make those and any recycling and donation requirements that we have. So that was a really great outcome of this Move Out program. And we've seen this more formalized process move beyond Move Out, and it's actually affected our move-in processes and really changed the way that housing staff thinks. And we're not only trying to divert waste during the move-out period, but when we're renovating offices or renovating residence halls or getting new fridges or furniture, we're always thinking, who can we connect with? Where can we get these? How do we keep these things out of the landfill? So it's really started to create a norm across the Division of Housing that this is just how we do things. So that's been great. And here are our metrics from this past year. This is our highest diversion rate yet. So a total of 129,000 pounds we were able to divert from the landfill, so either donated or recycled. And we collect these metrics from our rovers. They actually have tally sheets. So every item that they collect, every area rug, every futon, every microwave, they're tallying when they're putting it in the truck. And we're able to get a weight out of that. And our donation partners and recycling vendors are also required to send us a weight after the program, so we're able to share these metrics. And this year is actually the first year that our diversion rate, this 129,000, has surpassed our trash weight. So we had more donations and recyclables than we did trash during move out. So that's something we're very excited about this year and hope to continue to grow that in the future. And like I was saying before, this move out process isn't necessarily about the money we gain. We don't gain revenue from this. It's something that the division is willing to support, to do the right thing, and to create a culture of sustainability for our residents, for our students, and our staff. In housing, we live on the mantra that Badgers live sustainably, so this is just another part of that. And as our residents are leaving campus, that we're just reinforcing that message that Badgers live sustainably. So not only are we able to educate that, but also we're supporting the mission of organizations and nonprofits on and off campus and supporting their missions and really sharing why this matters. We're keeping things out of the landfill, but we're providing for those around us. So just reviewing some successes and challenges before we get to hear Tyler's story. Some great successes of our program here at UW-Madison, and that we're really proud of our connection to the courses. So giving students the opportunity to connect their learning with a real hands-on event is something that we're very excited to be able to provide, and different partnerships across campus, whether that be student organizations that get to volunteer, or whether that be the food pantry that we're able to provide for or whether that be with a financial aid office, that we're able to keep things on campus, keep the circle of goods right close to home, and have students help students with those students and student donations. Another great success of the program is all of the processes that we've been able to document through our site signage, our volunteer guides, our rover guides, and our entire event planning manual. That, again, I'd be happy to share with you all any parts and pieces or the whole thing. And another thing that was new this year that I haven't mentioned yet, we created memorandums of agreements with all of our partners. So to really organize that process in all of our partnerships that we have, we solidified those, and I drafted everyone's expectations, housing's expectations, and the partner's expectations. So it's very clear who is responsible for what, and we didn't experience too many bumps, and that was a way to improve. We had a lot of turnover in a lot of our partnership organizations. So this is a way that we could, over the years, keep that streamlined. And so a few things that we're hoping to expand on next year is promoting and telling the story of move out to residents and families. So first and foremost, making sure that residents and families know that this is an option for them when their student is moving out, that these donation and recycling options are accessible to them, but also sharing what impact that has. So yes, this might take you a little bit of extra time while you're just trying to move out and get home, but here's why it's important. You're helping these organizations and you're making this impact. And we really want to be able to share and tell them how their effort now is really worth it later. And part of what's preventing even more student-to-student donations, as you saw, we're quite an urban campus. So space to store items, we'd love to store things over the summer months and provide them to students when they move in fall. So finding space to keep items so we can connect with more students from the financial aid office and get them the items they need so they can really make their new space feel like home without that burden. And then the last thing, we want to up our volunteer training, and in addition to the guides they get in the site signage, we want to create a training video so when the education rovers are trying to make their rounds, they can't be in 10 places at once, so sometimes volunteers have to wait some time until the rover is there to give them their overview for their 2-hour shift. So we filmed a video this past move out and we're editing it and going to have it ready so volunteers can view that before they even get on site and have a training period and get oriented to the site. And then also we use a texting message to check in our volunteers. So we'll send the video link out again to just keep reinforcing with the volunteers their duties for the event and their shift with us. So that's what we're looking forward to in 2018. I look forward to hearing your questions, and I will turn it over to Tyler now.
Okay, hello everyone. I think I've unmuted myself and everyone can hear me. Thanks for joining. I'm going to go through our experience with Move Out, a little bit newer to the game than Bree and the UW folks, so I'm learning a lot from them as well. So I'll go through our experience here at Laurier. So to start things off, I'm going to set the context as well. So we're up in Canada, in Waterloo, Ontario, which is about an hour west of Toronto. Right, you can see the pin on the map there. We're a fairly low point, southwestern Ontario, so we're right down there in the Great Lakes, and we have a population of about 500,000 in the region, and our campus is right in the middle of that, which is quickly becoming a thriving tech community. And you can see I've put in these large organizations, these large companies, tech companies, have moved in their Canadian headquarters into either our uptown or downtown areas So that is quickly becoming a focus in the area. So high tech and the community, both built and people, is changing rapidly. Here's a closer look of our Waterloo campus. All the colored boxes and pins are campus locations, and we're basically located within one urban city block. The red stars are high-density student neighborhoods. So they're kind of all scattered around campus, and those are the main focus areas for our program. But you can see just down the road is the University of Waterloo, so another UW, and they're about 2.5 times the size student body as Laurier is, and they're just a few city blocks down the road. So to set the context, it's not just our university in this urban area. We have another larger university that has students living in the same areas that our students live in as well. And we have about 19,000 students and about 1,600 to 1,700 employees, give or take. So the Move Out program is led by the Sustainability Office, our Sustainability Office campus-wide. I am the Outreach and Program Coordinator for the office. I've been with the role, or with the office, for about since 2014. Our office was created in 2010, however, and it was actually created through a student referendum where a vote was put to our students' union to create our office through a student levy. So there's a lot of ownership for sustainability at Laurier, being that our office exists because students led a grassroots movement to create it. So we really focus our services back to students. We now have 3 full-time staff and 3 part-time student employees, and we recruit volunteers, student volunteers, whenever we can to help out. So in our residence buildings, we also have a Sustainability House Council, which is a group made up of representatives from each residence building, sustainability representatives, and they sit on a house council. So we have one sustainability rep from each residence building, and that they are guided by an advisor, an upper year student hired by our office, and they run a series of events, sustainability events throughout the year, but culminating for sure with the Move Out event, which happens in April. We have 15 residence buildings, which houses about 3,000 students, and that's a mix of both dorm style and apartment style residences. So our Move Out program, I mentioned we're kind of young in the game, so we started, this 2017 was our 3rd year, and right in the midst of our 1st year, we coincidentally got some bad press on social media. So one of those neighborhoods that I had starred earlier, we had a neighborhood association that took to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and was calling Laurier out and our students out on being, you can see the one post there, being disgraceful. So they had been getting in touch with the municipal enforcement and publicly calling us out to work with students to change the game of the kind of the messes you see on the curbside here. So it was good timing in that we had just launched our Move Out program. So we were able to start a conversation with these community groups and bring them into working towards a solution. And also that we knew this was something that was important to the residents, the permanent residents that lived in those areas as well. Because of course it's not entirely students that live in those areas. So that was kind of my first experience with Move Out. And I'll now walk you through kind of how our program works and how it's evolved and where we're heading with it. So this is a big table here, but I'll walk you through it. So in that first year, 2015, when we got the bad press online, we were actually just focused on a pilot in our residence buildings only. So we looked at 11 residence buildings and we collected 4 waste streams. And I'll just go back a slide. Basically, each residence building had one of these totes signed with the type of waste that we were collecting. And that was clothing, non-perishable food, books, and e-waste. And the outreach was almost entirely through that Sustainability Council that I mentioned earlier. Our office was serving an advisory capacity. We provided support, advice, creating connections for the Sustainability Council, but they primarily took the lead on running the program, promoting it, facilitating it, connecting with waste vendors and recycling partners and all that kind of stuff. Our office was kind of hands-off, however, except for that advisory capacity. Following that, we were able to launch an off-campus program for our Waterloo campus. So we did the same thing in residence, but now we created a drop-off location where students could bring their items for off-campus students. So we expanded the waste streams to both include furniture and household items and appliances as well. And it was in our Northdale campus. I'm going to go back just to that map to show you. So the Northdale campus is the one on the north end of that map that kind of sticks out with the purple dot on it, kind of near that uppermost star. That's the Northdale campus. So it's only a short, less than 1 major block from our main campus. And we chose that location because they had a large parking lot, access for vehicles, and was not too far from main campus. But because we launched off-campus, we needed to get the word out. So you can see our outreach efforts. We pretty much hit every outreach channel we could think of. Everything from posters, A-frames in the neighborhoods. We had press releases. We rented a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. We put images up on our campus screens. We sent students out into high-density neighborhoods, handing out, knocking on doors and handing out flyers. We reached out to landlords and property management groups in the area. And we had a partnership with our social innovation group, which I'll talk about shortly. So outreach took up a lot of our time this year. In 2017, we continued the program. However, we changed locations to our athletics field, our parking lot by our athletics field. And I'll just jump back again to show you where that is. Right in the middle of campus, there's a green field where there's a yellow pin placed. That is where our athletics field, our main soccer field is. So right in the heart of campus, we thought making it as easy as possible for students and getting a lot of visibility as students walk through campus was important, and it ended up being very important. That's something that we'll probably stick with. We kept the types of items in the waste stream the same. However, we refined our outreach, tried a few new things, also eliminated some things that weren't providing value for us. Some of the key things to highlight here is our Facebook event. We advertised both years. In 2016, we advertised to students and parents under the assumption that most students would be having their parents help them move with their vehicles, and that ad did terribly. So we cut out that expense in 2017 and focused just on students, and it had a much higher engagement rate, which I'll show you. We also did a Snapchat takeover of the university's official Snapchat account. Snapchat started becoming very big over the last year here, and our communications office has a university official account which we're able to do takeovers for. So we did that, and that actually got quite a bit of engagement as well. For resources and partners, again, in 2015, it was all in residence buildings, so we had to get clearance from our residence facilities and residence education departments, our grounds department as well, to make sure that if we had any needs for waste that we could get those taken care of. Pretty much when it comes to working with our residence partners, if they don't notice that we're there, then we're doing a good job. We want it to be as hassle-free as possible for these partners. And Waste Management provided the totes that you saw, which came out of our Sustainability Council's budget for 2015. And when it comes to programs and incentives, there weren't any incentives. It was really just the council encouraging students that live in their residence buildings to participate, providing them an outlet for any items that they were packing up that they didn't want to bring with them, instead of just leaving it behind or throwing it in the garbage. In 2016, these were very different when we expanded to off-campus. We still kept the same partnerships going in residence. However, we partnered with our civic group, which is Social Innovation and Venture Creation. They're a group that runs design labs, which I'll touch on in, I think, the next slide here. But another great partner was the region and the cities, the region and the city of Waterloo. Both we had our municipal enforcement staff and our regional waste staff provide guidance as well as support. The region in particular, who's responsible for curbside waste pickup, they provided us with heat maps of high volume areas for that time of year. So they identified literally the roads that they send additional curbside vehicles to pick up waste during April. So we were able to target those areas both in advertising, but also in door knocking and making sure the students that lived in those areas knew what was going on. Through negotiations with WM, we were able to get the totes for residents complimentary for free. However, for our off-campus location, we paid for a WM roll top, a 40-yard bin. We also strengthened partnerships with our recycling vendors, and we thought it would be smart to incentivize participation in the program. So at the bottom there, I've highlighted Wilf's, which is our on-campus restaurant and bar. Fiddleheads, Abe Herb, and Settlement Cafe are all cafes and restaurants within a 10-minute walk from campus, and they all provided various incentives in terms of discounts. So we provided coupons to any student that dropped off an item at our drop location, and they were able to redeem it. As well as we had to call on volunteers to help with drop-offs and sorting and things like that. So incentives, the coupons was our main incentive, and then for volunteers we provided co-curricular record for any students that volunteered. The key difference that I want to highlight for 2017 is we then further engaged campus clubs. So Shinorama and SOS, which I've bolded, are two of the clubs on campus that have the highest memberships. So we tapped them early for both outreach as well as for volunteer support as well. So both those clubs are very experienced with barbecues. So in 2017, the incentive we used was host a barbecue, host a board game cafe, host a documentary tent. So we really approached it to more of a fun event that people would want to be at rather than some type of coupon. We realized through feedback that the coupons weren't the main reason why students were participating. It was a nice to have thing, but they were typically dropping their stuff off and then leaving town, so the coupons weren't really immediately valuable to them. So we thought something to come and grab some food and maybe have a little bit of fun while they're there would be a better approach. That's kind of a high-level overview of our 3 years experience so far. And I mentioned our partnership with Civic, so that's Social Innovation and Venture Creation Group. In 2016, we invited stakeholders in the community and campus, including the neighborhood associations that had taken to social media and called us out, student clubs, student groups, student associations, local government representatives, landlords, property management groups, recycling partners, pretty much everyone that has stake in it, and just general students and staff and faculty as well, to come. And it was a day-long workshop where we worked through issue identification, we worked through possible solutions, and then what resources might be required. So you can see, if you can read, that's a photo of the issue whiteboard, things like awareness, or no structure or process for students. The one in the middle there is responsibility and accountability, which is very interesting. Something that came up from our students repeatedly was that they don't feel like they belong in the community. They feel separate, being transient in nature and only here for a limited amount of time. They didn't have that ownership to the community. So something I've really focused on in all of our programming now is to get students out into the community that they're living in for the 4 or 5 years that they're here. But they describe it as the university bubble. And we've seen that in other programming as well. So that's something we're focusing on that came out of that. And that's kind of an overview of the approach: meet, frame the context, and work on ideas. Prioritizing. So we had a vote, dot democracy, and we voted on the plans that we thought were the most effective and realizable. So, and the ones I described were kind of iterations of that. So our results to date, in 2015, that was our residence specific year, we diverted about 2,000 pounds, so very significant differences in the volumes of waste from UW. But you can see in that first year, the majority of that was food, with almost 1,200 pounds of food being collected. In 2016, that's combined residence and off-campus collections, and you can see lots of clothing, and that was not almost, but a large chunk of that was from one residence building. E-waste was significant, but noticeably our food waste just fell right off the map, and I don't really have a good understanding of why, especially considering in the next year the weights went right back up to almost 1,100 pounds for food. So very intriguing, and we'll see what the following year trend is as well, and hope to get some insights there. Clothing continued to rise, also unique or very interesting in that we held about 3 clothing drives in our residence buildings throughout the year, which aren't included in this count. This was just from our move-out week. So very interesting that clothing is on the rise. And as well, the e-waste, I don't have a number here because we didn't get volumes from them. However, anecdotally, I can say we collected very, very little e-waste. Really about 2 or 3 printers and 1 TV was about what we got, and some cables. So very minimal weight for e-waste in the most recent year. We do track our costs. We don't spend a ton on this program. 2015, we had no costs. It was the only costs were the tote rentals, which came out of our residence council budget. In 2016, we did some printing, rentals for the tube man. We did some Facebook advertisements and some balloons and things like that. In 2017, we had a few similar costs, but notably, we partnered in 2017 with a clothing recycler that pays us 5 cents a pound for textile collections. So we actually were able to recoup about $112 while increasing the amount of total weight that we were able to collect and divert from landfill. I mentioned our outreach. We do track all of our outreach efforts. Facebook and the Dean's email. So the Dean's email sends out an end-of-year email to students, and they've included the move-out program each year we've done it. Those are by far the most effective. It's about, Facebook's about 40%, the Dean's email is about 40% of our actual responses, people that end up donating some type of item. And then our ad, you can see in 2016, our event responses, views, engagement were significantly lower than 2017, and the ad result, the difference is quite noticeable. That was largely better targeting in the ad itself, but also focusing on students instead of parents as well. So what worked in 2017? We changed the location, higher visibility. It was right outside our athletic center, which was an exam location, so we had students walking past almost 24/7. Sustainability Council and Residence Collection, we had a great promotion this year, lots of great signage, and you see that with the increase in food volume and clothing. Partnerships, our grounds department, we wouldn't be able to run this program without our grounds department. Especially this year when I'll talk about what didn't work. Grounds kind of saved our butts a bit. But also we reached out to our residence groups, our parking and athletics, more clubs. So we had a lot of great support. The one on here I want to highlight is the Ontario Federation for Cerebral Palsy. We had some issues with our furniture and household appliances partner, and I had to end up calling around last minute, and the Ontario Federation for Cerebral Palsy was able to collect almost all of the goods that we had donated and divert them. So we'll be moving forward with a partnership with them. As well, branding, we changed our brand this year to the image you see there at the bottom right. We had our communications and marketing department redo the stick figure drawing basically that I had made the year before, and it looks a lot nicer, and we're going to be going forward with this brand, and hopefully we get some year-over-year brand recognition from students that were involved either in the council or excuse me, or participated. What didn't work? furniture and household items, I mentioned we had some issues with an unreliable partner. So I really like Bree's idea of the memorandums. We had verbal agreements on what was acceptable and when pickups would be undertaken. And on the first pickup, our partner came and said they're not taking any of the items we collected, even though they had met the acceptability conditions we had agreed upon. So having something written down or that you are very certain of your expectations is hugely important. With waste management, the roll top bins we're getting seem to be very rusty and leaky. We had some rain over the time we had our move out program, so we ended up having to throw out some of the textiles we'd collected because they were getting moldy, and it's just not a situation where we want students climbing in and out of a big rusty roll top bin that might have broken glass or things like that, sharp edges. So we're going to be doing something different in this upcoming year. As well, they picked up the roll top bins before we were able to get any of the items out of it. There was a miscommunication in our scheduling, so we had to go to Waste Management's central facility and do all the sorting there. Off-campus residences, we have a limited ability to monitor these off-campus residence buildings, and this is because even though we have a Sustainability Council representative in those buildings, the way that it works in residence for students when they're finishing exams, after their final exam, they have 48 hours to move out. So if their exam schedule finishes early in the schedule, they leave, and there'll still be students left there that are maybe writing till the end of the exam schedule, and there's no one there to monitor the bins that we've placed. So at one of those buildings this year, we had a mountain of garbage. You couldn't even see the bins. It was just a huge mess, and this is where our grounds department saved our butts. They were able to come in and tackle getting all the garbage out of there, but that was basically a lost residence for us. We weren't able to sort through it. Just the contamination was too high. And I know I'm running out of time here, so I'll just touch on the incentives. Again, we had assumed that barbecue and games and documentaries and making a fair style event would be more attractive, but again, it really wasn't. We're continually finding just providing students with options is the biggest incentive. They don't want to leave their stuff on the curb. They want a place to put it. So making them aware that there are options, that seems to be the best thing for us. So my last slide here is for moving forward. We're going to try scoping back to on-campus residences only, so we'll be down to about 9, I believe, and we'll have better control and monitoring abilities being on campus. We're going to be looking at better incentives. The challenge here is that students are in a hurry to leave. They finish their exam and they head out pretty much as soon as possible. So what can we do to work with students in that mindset? Timing as well. We only do move out in one period in April. However, we do know that as full year leases come up at the end of August, that's another period when we might be able to tackle. Weekdays versus weekends, we've done both in the past, and it's kind of a 50-50 horse apiece scenario where you kind of need both. But that obviously is a lot of resources required. And I'll just skip down to resources here. So going forward, we're going to get full building access for our council advisors. So if their campus or if their sustainability campus reps leave because their exams are done early, at least the advisor will be able to get into the buildings. We're going to further expand our outreach to campus clubs. We're currently looking at having a permanent space like a thrift shop or a pop-up thrift shop for a temporary space. And learning from Bree, course partnerships, we're going to be exploring that as well because we see the value in having dedicated volunteers. And that's it for my presentation. Here's our contact information if you need to get a hold of either Bree or myself. And yeah, I guess I'll pass it back to Daida to do questions.
Thank you so much, Tyler and Bree, for sharing your expertise with us today. We will now turn to our audience for questions. Before we start, I'd like to remind everyone to send your questions via the questions pane on the GoToWebinar control panel. And very interestingly today, at least a couple of the questions we received were answered later in the presentation. So Tyler and Bree, you did a good job at explaining those. For example, Tyler, you received the question of what happens with the furniture, and I think you addressed that.
Well, I can answer that question in more detail, actually,
okay,
if you like.
Go ahead.
So this in 2017, when we had our partner kind of back out at the last minute, I was in a scramble there. So I eventually found the Ontario Federation for Cerebral Palsy, and they would only pick up items if we were able to provide textiles as well. That's where they make their money. So we split our clothing between our clothing partner, Textile Waste Diversion, and with the Ontario Federation of Cerebral Palsy. However, the furniture, they were not able to collect, and we had about one full 40-yard roll top full of couches and things like that. And that went to landfill, unfortunately. The time constraints we were under limited our ability to do anything with that, but they did take all of our household appliances and items, which was about 50 moving boxes full. So it wasn't a perfect solution this year. The partner that we had used in the previous year, they were overwhelmed by the volume that we provided them last year, and when I reached out to them this year, they just said they can't do it. So we're working on that as a short answer, or a long answer, I suppose.
Thank you very much. And Brianna, who is your carpet recycler?
We work with a local vendor called Surgenian.
Okay, thank you. Also for Brianna, is there someone manning the 10 locations at all times?
At all times, the sites are open, yes. So the sites are open roughly each day from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and there's someone at that site at those times, and then we do open and close them each evening. So they're closed after the hours, I guess you'd say.
Thank you. And also for Bree, where do you see your program going next?
I think the next thing we want to do is really look at how we can formalize the training process. Like I said, with the training video, we want to make it a really streamlined process for our volunteers. So looking at, is it signage, is it this video, or what's really going to help them get the most out of their experience? We hear sometimes that they feel like they weren't able to be as effective because someone didn't check in with them until 30 minutes into their shift, or they didn't know what to do and they just sat around until someone came to tell them what to do. So the goal with that video is to overcome those and share from right in the beginning what the volunteers can do, and making the most of their time and making sure they're getting the most out of the experience that they can. And then also looking to other areas where we can expand our donation and recycling options. So thinking of how we can work with recyclers to recycle any wood that we receive, so any wooden futon frames. We're going to look for a process to get that recycled next year, so that's just one more waste stream that we'll be able to keep out of the landfill. And connecting with more on-campus donation organizations to move towards more student-to-student donations that I talked about.
Thank you. So Tyler, I'll ask you the same question. So where do you see your program going next? What what are you thinking of, being the next big impact?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of key areas. One is the furniture donations. So we actually have, last year we also started a surplus giveaway. So office items and furniture around campus, we've been collecting in our storage facility on campus, and some of the items have been there for years and years and years. So last year we did a giveaway where we opened up the warehouse for our staff and faculty to come and just kind of pick through things and take what they wanted. We asked for a donation, which is going to support a student scholarship. And now we're just actually working with one of our facilities managers to coordinate getting the rest of the items out of there. And it looks like we're going to be working with Habitat for Humanity, the Restore location here in Waterloo, to take those items. So I'd like to further the discussion with them to be our furniture partner during move out. And if we could have a formalized agreement like Brianna has with her partners, that would make my day. So that's one area. The other is looking at working with some course partnerships for credit or something along those lines. Those would be the two biggest wins I think I could go after this year, and very realizable, I think.
Thank you very much. Someone is looking for advice. So do you have any advice for student startup free store on a much smaller campus? We already have a location, not sure how to approach gathering volunteers. We have an environmental club and a sustainability council support. Any advice for them? Brianna, would you like to start first?
So can you just repeat the question, the first part? They're trying to start up a student thrift store?
Yeah, a free store. They called it free store on a small campus.
Okay. That's actually something that we don't have at UW-Madison, but I think that would be really successful. Advice that I would give on that is to try to leverage partnerships with other organizations on campus that might already have a presence to help promote the event, and also thinking through if there's student organizations that can help staff it, because having a set staffing and management scheme behind it is going to be very important before it takes off. You want to have the process figured out before you get up and running. So you're not trying to figure out the process and manage at the same time, because that's something we ran into while we were trying to do process improvements, that we really wanted to think about this and try to bring it to the next level and do process improvements, but then we had to do event planning and get the event going for this next year. So I'd really encourage you to sit down with the team and think of what you want the process and the management and the staffing and the goals are for the store before you go ahead and do your opening, so you have all your ducks in a row before things really start moving and get ahead of you.
And I'll just add I'll add a few things. Location, location, location. You already have the first thing done. We're actually in the process of looking at doing either a permanent or pop-up free store or thrift shop, working with a student group as well. And finding the location has been the hardest part so far. We have some temporary locations lined up that might work for us. So I guess deciding whether you are going to have a permanent free store or a pop-up free store, or if there's regular intervals, but figuring that out, I think, is the first step I would go after. And then once you have that determined, get the visibility out there, make sure that people know that you're there and what it is. So, I mean, we've talked about where we're looking at our location is near our student lounge area, so having footsteps go from the lounge to the door of the free store, or really anything you can do to cut through all the messages out there. Those would be the two main things to add to what Brianna has said that I would add.
Thank you so much, Tyler and Brianna. We have 1 minute left, and but before I conclude our presentation today, I also wanted to share our next webinar. If I can get this working. So, okay, our next webinar And now I think I'm sharing my screen. It's titled Core Concepts for Teaching Sustainability, Using Tips to Deepen Learning Across the Disciplines, Grade Levels, and Cultures. It will explore a range of concise, practical tips for rethinking tough problems and considering creative new solutions for teaching sustainability. You can learn more about this webinar and other webinars and professional development offerings on our website. And a final reminder to all attendees to please fill out our post-webinar survey. Thank you again, Tyler and Brianna, for sharing your expertise with us today. And thank you everyone for attending. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach either Brianna or Tyler or myself, and we'll be happy to connect with you. The recording of today's webinar, as well as Brianna's and Tyler's slides, will be available tomorrow in the AASHE Campus Sustainability Hub, and you'll receive an email once they're uploaded. And there's also additional resources on Move Out, as well as free stores and thrift stores in the hub. So I recommend that resource to anyone else who's looking for additional information. Thank you so much. Have a good day.